Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome along to another episode of EOTT with me, Jimmy James. And today I'm lucky enough to have Chris Thrall joining me. Thank you for coming along, Chris. I was introduced to Chris via Sean Atwood's podcast the other day. I highly recommend you go over and watch it. It's a great interview. I must say, Chris, you're very cool, calm, and collected. Your delivery style is very, I think, compared to someone like myself, I get a bit excited. I get a bit all over the shop, but you were very well received, I must say. I was looking through the comments, and I know you probably follow as well. And David McMillan is very popular on there. He's got that great delivery style, and you've got, as you do the public speaking stuff, you've got that down to a T. So that's something I have to work on because it's good. It's good, and people receive it.
No, mate. I'd say just Jimmy, you're a lovely man. Just be yourself. That's
bless you, sir. Bless you. Thank you very much.
That's what people want. Sean's podcast. I was just. I just wanted to stay calm, mate. That was it.
Yes, yeah. Well, you got into a few things, and as you said, it was your full story as you were breaking it down, and we only got into it. I think it was 2 hours and 20 minutes, and there was still so much more. So I'm looking forward to part two. And yes, and as I said, for anyone who would like to we're going to chat about a few things today, Chris and I. For anybody who would like to get a bit more of an in-depth to his background, you've got Chris's book, which is available, Eating Smoke, right, Chris? There we go.
There it is.
Beautiful, beautiful. Very well received book. I've not had a chance to read it myself. I am very deep into the Kindle at the moment, but it's on my list because, like I said, I enjoyed your story the other day. But today, go on.
Can I just say, Jimmy, my Eating Smoke, it's the story of me basically getting addicted to crystal meth while living in Hong Kong, having clinical psychosis for 7 months. And I worked in a nightclub that was run by the 14K triad. So that appeals to, forget the triad bit. I mean, unless you're 14 years old and you want to read about, stuff that's probably unlikely. My book's it's just a real book. You're not going to get stories of me killing anyone. But what I'm saying is quite... For people interested in mental health and what it's like to go mad, that book is written from that perspective. That's why I love doing podcasts like this, because you see like the truth, right?
Yes, indeed.
Whereas if I go to mainstream media, they don't want to know that I was mentally ill.
No.
They just want to put their own spin on my story and say, this guy thinks he was a Hong Kong triad, and it's like, no, you didn't read my book, did you? You didn't get that. All of this is while I'm in psychosis, right? So that's Eating Smoke. But my second book, and this is just so people know, like I make no money off these books. It's probably cost me hundreds of thousands in loss by not having a job, basically. I'm not saying I don't get to do what I love. What I'm saying is this: if you think I'm just trying to plug my books on your show, to anybody watching, you need to understand what writing a book in the year 2019 is really about. It's not about making money.
It's not really.
But if you read this and you haven't yet achieved all your goals in life, you're going to get an idea of how someone like me went from really being unwell, as I said, chronic addiction, to without any help from support groups like your AA and all this kind of people, without any input from the medical community, how I single-handedly looked myself in the mirror one day and went, things have got to change, Chris. And how I then went on to achieve everything that I wanted to in this life across all these countries, all these continents you see behind me. And it's so undervalued, Jimmy, that I'm surrounded by, I'm a former Royal Marines Commando. I'm surrounded by people who want to help veterans, but will they pick up a freaking book that costs 99p on Kindle and actually learn what some of us go through? It's all done in social media now, in little, clicky memes and stupid comments and sound bites and stuff that is so superficial. So I just wanted to.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And yeah, off the back of what you just said there, and you know, having experienced psychosis myself for the end of 2017, pretty much safe to say zero support from the system itself. Friends and family have been absolutely phenomenal, and that's what's gotten me through. And I'm still not through by any stretch, but I'm getting there. So as you said, this is the start of something new. And as you said, you guessed 5 on the podcast. I thought, yeah, I'm just going to go for it and start getting some stuff out there. And like off the back of what interested me and a lot about what you were saying the other day, talking to Sean, was this misunderstanding that we have as a society about addiction. I mentioned to you earlier, I'm 34 years of age now. I've been battling with my demons, or addiction as we call it, for the best part of 20 years in one form or another. And whether that's been drugs, food, more recently technology as a substitute for drugs, and then, as you know, the main one, alcohol. You know, cannabis was always my kind of go-to, and I'd stop the cannabis for, you know, maybe a couple of weeks at a time, but then I'd slip into the alcohol. And it's so easy, if you, like myself, I have a beautiful partner who will have a glass of wine. She'll happily just have a little glass of wine after work. Well, I'll drink the rest of the bloody bottle and then maybe crack open another bottle, you know. And it's just changing one for the other, for the other, for the other. And I'm by no means out the other side. This is something that we discussed just now about hoping to work on those demons now, coming up with a good friend of mine, Paul, who's the only Buddhist exorcist, or trained Buddhist exorcist in the UK, which is quite an accolade. He's a beautiful soul.
Hey, you need at least one in the UK.
Well, of
That's
course, this is it. And he's a special kind of guy. So I'm kind of blessed to have him in my life and the opportunity to kind of do that with him. So that'll be exciting to share
I
with
know,
everyone as well. A little
Jimmy,
bit daunting. Go on.
I've got a ninja who fixes my back.
Oh, excellent. Yeah,
Get
yeah.
that.
Awesome.
There's, you know, some amazing people in this world,
This
you know.
is it. There are, and I'm very lucky to know quite a few of them, and more recently to have met yourself. So it's an absolute pleasure to meet you, Chris. And I wanted to ask you about, Chris, like, can you tell us a little bit about your experience then after coming back from Hong Kong, how you got into specialist kind of addiction recovery work and all the rest of it, please?
Wow, good question. So, let me talk about myself now, Jim. I'm sorry if I sound evasive.
No, not at all. You do you, brother. You do you.
This is another phenomenon that social media has brought around. Is people just want short, sharp shocks, sharp injections of adrenaline to pacify the addiction that the social media creators over there in, what is it, Silicon Valley,
Silicon Valley,
that they purposely program into this media to get you addicted, right? We need to get away from that. And the reason I like doing podcasts is you can just talk as you would in the pub to your mate, and there's no editing, there's no you know, cutting out the bits that people might not want to hear.
Yeah, brilliant, exactly.
So I like to talk, you know, I need to sort of talk around subjects sometimes, because otherwise it's, you know, if you don't give the background, it doesn't really help people make sense, right? So
exactly.
I'm in a
just a quick interjection, if I may, Chris. Sorry to interrupt you, brother. But no holds barred with this one. This WTAF, what the actual fuck is based, pardon me, I'm in the library, so I shouldn't be swearing, but it's basically what's going on in this world, and there are no holds barred. So as I say, please do go on and, yeah, if there's a bit more background you want to give us, crack on. Thank you. Cheers.
So I'm just in a situation now, Jimmy, where I have a totally different spin on addiction and the relationship between addiction and, let's just say, drugs, than pretty much most other people walking this planet. Certainly anyone who believes what they see in the mainstream media, okay? I have a very positive and constructive framework around addiction, and I guess that has all come from my journey. So to answer your question, I came back from Hong Kong. I was severely mentally unwell. My dad didn't recognize me in the airport. I'd lost so much weight. I was just haggard, right?
Yeah, can imagine.
And of course I was in, you know, I was kind of in cloud cuckoo land. So here's the thing. in a nutshell, I came back. I had some crystal meth that I smuggled back with me. I had about 3 days worth of that. Don't suggest anybody smuggles drugs abroad. One of the most freaking stupid things you can ever do.
100%.
But let's not digress. And here's the thing, Jimmy, with my psychosis, when the drugs went, the psychosis followed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like I'd done some kind of irreparable damage to my brain. So 3 days worth of supply. When it was gone, I started to come back down.
Yeah.
Not just from the high, but also my mental health just instantly came back to let's call it normality. All right.
Yeah.
I then thought, wow, that was easy. That was easy to come off all that crystal meth stuff, you know, But of course, I was in the UK. It can be a pretty boring and depressing place at the best of times, right? When you're unemployed, you're no longer a Royal Marines Commando. You're no longer running for the sake of cliche, the $1 million business I was running in Hong Kong. I'm no longer high as a kite, and I'm no longer working in a nightclub for the Hong Kong triads, right? All those things are gone from my life. Now I'm living on a couch in my 2-bedroom rabbit hutch. The place is filthy because I've got no drive, no enthusiasm. I was depressed, Jimmy, you know, and I didn't know it because adults were so clueless back then about mental health. Nobody could tell me that I was depressed. Nobody knew it. Not the doctors, not my family, not my friends. So I've got this weird syndrome where I'm just feeling I'm flat. I've got nothing to give. I feel rubbish. I feel worthless. I feel like I didn't feel worthless as a person. I felt worthless to an employer because, you know, you don't get no qualification. I mean, I did some O-level GCSEs in the Marines, but I didn't get a trade.
Yeah.
All my business I created off my own back, so I had no degree in business or anything, right? And I couldn't even get a job in a factory because I had no experience or anything like that, right? So I spent 2 years in what I now know was chronic depression or clinical depression, you can call it. All I knew is I couldn't get off the sofa.
Yeah.
The only thing that would get me away from watching rubbish daytime TV, which you wouldn't get me to watch now if you paid me £1 million.
Yeah.
But I mean that generally. I
can relate to that.
You keep your money, mate. You know, is drugs, and of course we don't have crystal meth is not so easily available in the UK. So I get base amphetamine, which is methamphetamine, so a stronger form of speed than the stuff you buy in a nightclub, right?
Yeah.
But nowhere near as strong as crystal meth. So I would buy that. I'd get it every 2 weeks when my dole money or my income support came, which was like £50 a week, right? I spend most of that £50 a week or so, £100 a fortnight. Most of it went on base, and I'd be manic. Okay.
Sorry, someone was asking for the toilet. I'm in the library, as you know.
Right.
Everyone else don't. But yeah, carry on. Sorry, brother.
I'll be manic for 3, 4, 5 days without sleep. Generally, I took to injecting it because it made the hit, you know, a bit better and kind of made the gear last a bit longer. So I was shoving needles in my arms during that 4 or 5 days, anything up to 10, 15 times a day. Had all the needle fixation sort of stuff that you go through.
I read about that.
And then I would crash, Jimmy, and I'd wake up 48 hours later, even more depressed than I was before. Utterly shattered. Nowhere near as shattered as meth when you can stay up for 9 days easily, right? Well, not easily, but 9 days was the most I stayed up. I'd wake up ravenously hungry because 5 days I haven't eaten a single thing. I haven't really drunk much more than, say, 2 glasses of water a day, which was nowhere in it. When your body is you're speeding your frigging tits off.
Yeah.
All that moisture's coming out your body in 2 glasses of water. So you can guess the state I was waking up in.
Yeah.
I then had to deal with my ravenous hunger with like £1.87 left in my pocket to feed me for 9 days.
Nice.
So I'd go to the supermarket, I'd buy a big bag of like supermarket, you know, no frills porridge oats for 18p.
Yeah.
I'd buy a big bag of pasta for 22p. I'd buy a tub of margarine to get some fat in me for 27p. And I'd buy 4 pints of milk, and that would have to last. Oh, and buy like a 17p loaf, right? Cheap white slice loaf.
The good stuff.
In the end, I took to shoplifting Bovril, right? I wasn't like a prolific thief or anything like that. I've done stupid things in my past. That's another story. Maybe about that later. But you know, I wasn't like. I was probably a bit of a stupid shoplifter, because why didn't I shoplift more? I just shoplifted a jar of I just shoplift a jar of Bovril to have on the toast, right? And that's how I lived. I'd shove 4 slices of bread in the toaster, lay another 4 on top, because I was always too starving to wait to do them both. I'd wolf that down. I'd, in between sleeping and smoking, and I'd watch, you know, Jerry friggin' Springer or Ready Steady Cook, and it was those little rubbish programs that were the only thing. I didn't really live for them, but occasionally a good old black and white film would come on, and it would take my mind off the depression. It would take my mind off not having any drugs left, and I'd just sit and smoke roll-ups and watch that program, and that was my life. My house was utterly smashed up, not because I was in anger or anything, but because when I took the amphetamine, it made me so like I wanted to achieve stuff. But rather than go out and get a job, I'd do stupid stuff. Like I don't know, I'd decide to turn my couch into a corner suite. It would just seem like the right thing to do, right? Or I'd start one time I got so high, I decided to take the stairs down. I was going to have a rope instead of the stairs, right? Needless to say, and nothing I ever tried got finished. So I woke up in the morning, and I'm looking at my stairs, and I've started to take them apart. And I'm just thinking, you idiot, what were you thinking? My mate was in a wheelchair, for crying out loud. How was he supposed to get up there, you know? So that was it. I had like my one friend, the guy, he in a wheelchair, he had cerebral palsy. He'd come round, we smoked spliff. That was like my only company. My family couldn't deal with me. You know, when I came back from Hong Kong, they called the police on me 3 times because they couldn't understand my behaviour. They thought I was violent, Jimmy, but as you probably well know, most people suffering mental health are only a danger to themselves. I wasn't going to hurt anybody. I was just lost and confused. I didn't know why my life was like this, you know. I didn't know why I'd gone from being a handsome young commando with loads of money and a BMW in the driveway, and I had a mobile phone when people used to say, "What's that?" because nobody knew what they were back then, you know. I'm not saying this to impress you. It's
no,
a load
I understand.
All that's a load of bullshit, you know. But that's this is what I'm trying to justify in my head. So, cut a long story short, I had a moment of enlightenment one day. I woke up, I was too ashamed to go out of the house. I could hear the kids playing in the street, and they loved me. Them kids in my street, they didn't even call me Uncle Chris. They thought I was their mate because I was the only adult that I lived in like a modern estate, you know. I was the only adult on the estate would ever stop and say hello to them, and they bring their bikes round, and I'd fix their bikes for them. And they knock on the door, "Chris, you're going to come and play football?" And I got to know all their, you know, parents, and it was kind of, for someone that I'd always made the promise, I'm not going to be that adult that kids are scared of, because when I was young, growing up in the 70s, they were a bunch of bastards, mate, you know. Most adults abused children without even knowing it. They didn't know that the way they interacted was wrong.
It's been a transitional thing, isn't it?
You know, yeah, I don't talk about, you know, stuff close to home, because as I said on Sean's podcast, forgiveness is everything for me. When someone has made the effort to say sorry, as far as I'm concerned, that's all they can do. They can't do more, and I don't go there, right? But talking in general terms, you could be walking down the street in the 70s, an adult will come running across the road, smack you around the head, knock you like unconscious. You'd come to, like, you know, my mum would come up to me, what's the matter with you? Oh, that bloke just hit me, mum, right? She's like, what? Why didn't you tell me? Well, I didn't tell her, Jimmy, because I didn't know that was wrong. I thought that was normal behaviour, right? That was how it was. In school, they would, to punish you, they humiliate you. You know, you got to remember, I'm a kid I've got a lot going on at home, and you know, a child shouldn't really have had to be going through that, right? And then I'm at school with a teacher that doesn't even know anything what I'm already going through, and they then did some horrible thing, you know, horrible things in you know, to chastise me, you could say. And I'm a child, so what's the worst? I wasn't a bad child, Jimmy. You know, it was stupid things like I'd talk to someone while we're putting the chairs on the tables at the end of school, right? Teacher would just scream, "Thrall, here now!" Just because I whispered something to, like, my buddy at the end of the day. It's not like we're in the middle of the class or anything, right? That teacher hoiked me up on the desk, stripped me off, and then proceeded to beat me in front of the class, right? I don't give a shit now. I'm not saying this to like, I don't live in the past or anything, but I just say it so people who live in this modern era can understand what it was like for some of us. That was wrong. That event traumatized me. I was so embarrassed, Jimmy. I hid under the table and I didn't want to come out. I was hiding under the table, making the excuse that I was cleaning the floor, because we used to have to, like, sweep up and all this, right? And if you did that to a kid now, right, you'd get, what, 5 years in prison?
Easily.
You know, there's sexual abuse, physical abuse, and mental abuse from a school teacher, right? So anyway, digress a bit, but
that's fine. That's fine.
But so I promised myself I wasn't going to be that adult that didn't understand kids. So I built this amazing relationship with all the kids in my street. And this morning when I woke up, I couldn't go outside because I could hear them playing, and I knew the second I went out, they'd all come running up. Chris, come and play football, you know? And I couldn't go outside because I was ashamed of myself, Jimmy, you know? I was ashamed that, like, one of their parents might come up and go, "Chris, what the fuck's up? What's happened to you? You're not looking right," you know? And in that moment, I had, like, nervous breakdown number bloody 5 or something. Right? I just burst out crying because, like, if I talk about that little boy that was abused, right, who went through this childhood he didn't understand. I went to 5 schools before the age of 10, I think it was. Right, that's 5 lots of people trying to bully you, and then you have to stick up and smack them one to stop yourself getting bullied. I mean, there was other good sides. There was 5 lots of girls that would take a shine to you as well, right? That was nice.
A man after my own heart.
Yeah, it was a funny relationship. The girls used to like me. The boys used to want to, you know, want to fight me.
The rough and the smooth, as they say.
Yeah. I'm not arguing. You know? But anyway, so I had all these schools that I went to, and I'm there in my house in Plymouth, and I'm thinking, that little boy he's still getting abused, right? He's still having a rough time, but you're doing it to him, Chris. You're shoving the drugs down his, up his nose, injecting it in his arm. You're the one that's living this lifestyle. Now, I'm not talking about addiction here, which is a mental health illness that you cannot control. I'm talking about, I'm coming to the end of this period of chaos now, and I'm starting to see it for what it is, Jimmy,
Yeah.
And I'm starting to gain a bit of control over my mind and my thoughts and how I make sense of the world. And I'm saying to myself, like, son, you got to stop doing this. It's not working, is it? When you started taking the drugs, it was because they made you happy, they made you energetic. I learned stuff about myself that they told me I was a failure at in school. Used to enjoy going out dancing for hours on end. Used to just feel amazing. I used to feel like this is life. This is the person that I'm supposed to be, right? And so I had to look myself in the mirror and say, Chris, all that stuff's not working anymore, is it? And in that moment, Jimmy, I made a promise to myself. I was never going to be an angel. Didn't want to give up the drugs because, I enjoyed doing the drugs, if I was honest.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to stop slagging them off like, becoming a new evangelist, going, oh, that was the wrong lifestyle. I made a mistake and I'm so sorry. It's like, I hadn't made any mistake. I was just someone on the journey trying to make sense of their life. And I'd experimented, in a few different avenues to try to, and this is all subconscious. I subconsciously experimented in an attempt to learn who I was. Why do I have different feelings maybe to other people? What is this life all about? So yeah, it was just time to start facing the music a bit. And so I made a promise that I wouldn't give up the drugs, but I'd cut down to when I went to my dealer, instead of giving him all of my money, I'd just get one bag.
Right. So
a £10 bag of base. And when it was gone, it was gone. Because here's the thing, I wasn't achieving anything on it anyway.
Yeah.
So it was a waste of time. But I couldn't get over that, when your endorphins start kicking off, when you think about scoring, it's called acting out, right? Yeah. When I'd have to somehow address this acting out, just because I had to act out the process of buying and injecting drugs.
Yeah.
That didn't mean I had to do the 4 or 5 day thing afterwards, right? Because I didn't achieve anything on it, and I'd wake up feeling like shit.
Yeah.
So I decided to buy the £10 bag and just do the acting out thing. And then when it was gone, force myself to go to, well, I'd probably crash out anyway, with tiredness anyway. And then wake up and get on with my life. And the central rule that I made, next to the buying the 1 gram only, was I was always going to smile at the morning sun and tell myself how lucky I was to be here when a lot of, like, for example, Marines I knew had died in terrible circumstances. They died young, terrible circumstances. And I wasn't dead. I was here. This world, whether if you take the human element out of it and all that head fuck, it's a beautiful planet, right? There's no getting away from it. It's life. I don't even want to try to guess what it is, because you don't need to appreciate and love it, right? Yeah. And so at the bottom, my bottom dollar is that this planet is beautiful as it is. So if I'm not sensing that, it's because I've got to sort something out up here, right? Yeah. It's because my priorities aren't right. It's because my thinking's not straight. It's because I'm probably worrying about the wrong things instead of embracing the right things. And that's what I did. I'd have my binge. I'd wake up, but instead of feeling like shit and rolling over and going to sleep, I'd get up, have a shower, make a cup of tea. That would be my drug. And I'd do the washing up. Simple act. Do the washing up. I'm going to be writing about this in my in the book I'm writing at the minute about when last year I ran from John O'Groats to Land's End, 1,000 miles, pretty much non-stop, right? And when people ask me, Chris, how can you do that? I say, it's easy.
Yeah.
You run around the block. Seriously, that's how I start. I start all my challenges, all my traveling to 80 different countries, my studies, learning to becoming a pilot, becoming a sky. All of that starts with a simple action, and I call that action running around the block, because very often I just run around the block.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to put all this in my next book, but that's what I did. And here's the thing: when you reach out to the universe like that, you make that little effort in the morning or whatever it is, the universe gives it back to you equally, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So the more effort you put, the more effort you're putting out, the more you're getting back. And it really is that simple. So I just kept putting out. I'd also developed, well, in fact, I'd also stumbled upon the path to enlightenment, because I didn't think the same, Jimmy, as I did before I took drugs. And it's certainly before I experienced addiction, I felt differently about myself. I felt differently about life, and I saw it for what it was. I was now outside the matrix. And part of the reason that I think I was able to step outside of it and make a better sense of the world was that I saw the treatment I was subjected to going through mental health illness. I saw the people that just literally shit their fucking pants and ran away from me because I was unwell, couldn't deal with it, couldn't handle it, were afraid of it. And yet I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I was desperate, Jimmy. You know, I was really unwell, and it set me on a pathway to enlightenment. I followed that pathway ever since, and now I'm in a beautiful position where, like, I own my own mind. And everyone, you know, a lot of people watching this probably, oh, well, we all do that. It's like, no.
Do we?
Most people don't.
We really?
Most people don't. I'd say probably 80% don't.
Yeah.
There's probably another 10% that think they do, but they probably own a part of it. And then enlightenment essentially means just seeing it's shining a light on the world, right? It's shining a light in a world of darkness. That's essentially what it means. And that's the point I kind of think I'm at now. I'm only human. I have my same stresses and bad. I don't really have bad days, because that's a lie. I know now how to turn like a bad mood into a...
Don't allow it to develop into a bad day. Yeah,
exactly. I do the things that are necessary.
Catch hold of it before.
Yeah. And all human angst, generally, the vast majority of it, I should say, relates to the stresses society puts on you, because it's so full of bullshit, you know? It's just so inhumane a lot of the time, right? So, am I making sense, Jimmy? Sorry, I know
100%. You are. No, you please do carry on. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I'm relating 100%. So, as you were.
Yeah, and so but being in this position, it's interesting, because, you know, you're quite alone. There's not many. It's why I love meeting people like yourself and Sean.
Yeah.
You start to meet these enlightened individuals, and we don't live in the world that most people do, and it's quite funny. I'm not anyone listening. I'm not saying I'm special.
That's it.
That's not what it's meant to mean at all. I'm not better than anyone. I'm literally not better than a blade of grass. No. We're all just
everything is equal. Exactly. Yeah, we're all connected.
Well, what I always say is we're just carbon atoms at the end of the day. You know, we might be held together to look like a body, but we're not. I'm no different to you. You're no different to me. You're just a cluster of carbon atoms that's held together. You got some chemical stuff going on and some electrical impulses in your brain, which is holding a load of liquid together in you know, liquid and skin and body matter together, which helps you form a brain.
Yeah.
But we're matter at the end of the day, you know. this brain thing gives us the illusion we're like individual people, and it's not. We're just life experiencing itself in this form, right?
Yeah.
So I just say that so people listening don't think this is a like Billy Big Balls competition. It's
No,
not.
I'm sure the type of people who will be listening will certainly not be thinking that. But thank you for clarifying for us. Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, Chris.
So that's where I'm at, and off the back of it, I've got this interesting situation, Jimmy, where like the experience I told you about, it got really horrendous at times. There was one point where I had this itching in my skin, right? So I went to see the doctor, and he said, "Do you take drugs?" I've always been quite an honest person, so I said, and I didn't want to lie. I said, "Yes, doctor, I take amphetamine." He went, "Then you're imagining it, right?" What he was doing is what doctors and the medical community make the big mistake. And I know you have experience in mental health, it can be awful. The effects of making such rash judgments can be catastrophic on an individual's life. What he was doing was looking in a textbook, medical tomes, reading, when someone takes amphetamine, they imagine they've got bugs in their skin. So that's all he was doing, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't his fault. He just, it's just, here's the thing. You can't imagine itching all over. You're either itching or you're not, right?
That's it. I know. Yeah.
And what it was, in hindsight, like I'm putting a massive chemical I'm injecting this horrible, bitter chemical called speed, right? Base amphetamine. It's made in a zinc bathtub in some farmer's bloody stable or something, right?
Yeah.
It's got industrial chemicals in. I'm injecting that straight into my bloodstream. My body's got to get rid of it somehow, right? And of course it's going to come out. It's going to come out of the skin, and that skin's going to cause you to itch, right? So I've got my doctor telling me I'm imagining what I've just explained to you. Well, of course I'm not imagining it. So I then spent about a year thinking that I had bugs, like my house was infected or something. I was calling out the bug sprayer guy from the council to come and spray. I was throwing away half my stuff. The number of times I threw my food away because I thought it was infected, and I at one point I would put myself in a bath of bleach. Right, this is how low, and I'm off my fucking head as well. Right?
I should hope so.
I'd get like a cup of bleach as strong as I dared, and I'd pour it. And I had no hot water because I couldn't afford to have the heating on. So in the middle of winter, I'd jump into a freezing cold bath of bleach and just bleach my skin, trying to cure myself of these bugs, right? And so, it got dark. But the point of this is I won't change that, Jimmy, for the world. You couldn't pay me the same way you couldn't pay me now to watch daytime TV or watch a soap opera. You couldn't pay me to get rid of that experience, because off the back of it, I now understand human beings as far as I can, right?
Yeah.
I now understand myself. I now live as an enlightened individual that can go out and get pretty much anything that I want in this life. I set a goal and I just go out and achieve it. I have an amazing family that I wouldn't have had. I wouldn't have met them if I'd been down a different pathway. And I don't want to swap them for anybody, because you meet my little boy.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm probably going to get a bit cliche saying that in podcasts, but I've really been blessed by Mother Nature with the best kid ever. He's
beautiful stuff.
He's just something special, and like people want to say that I shouldn't have gone through addiction, I shouldn't have taken drugs, and that I don't.
Makes you who you are, doesn't it?
I wouldn't have my boy. I'm not violent, but I want to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. I've lived, worked, and I'm not trying to repeat myself to sound big-headed.
No.
It's like all of those most of those countries you see, well, I've seen over half the countries in the world, 80 countries.
That's some going.
Yeah, I've ventured to the Antarctica and scuba dive with icebergs. I wrote a best-selling book. I'm a graduate. I got a degree in youth work. You know, I told you I was passionate about young people. It's like, why do I have to explain myself for going through addiction to anybody? You know,
Exactly.
And yet the way society frames addiction is if like it's this bad thing that you should be, you should be ashamed of. And they come up with these names like smackhead and speed freak, and it's like, do we call people who are experiencing cancer, do we call them cancers? Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if someone said to you, look, my mother, she's got cancer, and you went, oh, she's a cancer. Oh, blimey. You get beaten up every day, right?
Yeah.
And yet when it comes to mental health, we have disgusting attitude towards it in this country. You know, we've disgusting attitude, the way we treat prisoners with mental health, the way we treat them full stop, the way we incarcerate people with mental health conditions.
Yeah.
The way I've worked in mental health units, and I've seen the relish that nurses have taken in, I don't want to say beating someone up, but they do this thing called
control and restraint, is it?
Yeah, control and restraint, right?
Yep.
When that alarm goes off,
They love it. Oh, they love it.
The first question you've got to ask yourself, why are they all wearing Doc Martin boots or military boots?
Exactly.
They're working in a mental health ward with people that are more likely to harm themselves than anyone else.
Yeah.
Why have they got boots on, jack boots on, like the Gestapo, you know, like the Nazi stormtroopers? That was the first thing that came into my mind. Then when I saw the alarms go off, because this poor old dear was having a moment, you know, moment in between her meds working or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think she spat at a worker. It was nothing. It was harmless, right? You know, people are going to say, oh, well, you can get AIDS and all that.
Yeah.
The little old lady who went like that in a moment, and that's not her behavior. That's her mental illness, you know.
Yeah.
God, they jumped on this lady, pulled her trousers and underwear down. This is a 55-year-old woman in front of everybody, started smacking her with the needle that's got the tranquilizer in.
Yeah, been there.
It was like something off One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know. I'm not saying all workers are like mental health.
Not by any stretch. It's the same with everything though, right, Chris? It's the same with everything.
Yeah.
It's, you know, good and bad and all. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
And I'm not saying that they don't face some tough, you know, situations, but what I am saying is on occasion, it's just like, my God, you know.
Very apparent, isn't it? With some of them, very apparent.
So that's kind of my situation. And the other side of the coin is, I now see the ludicrous way that people in society have been taught that drugs is addiction, that it's the same thing.
Yeah. And
it's just, I think I said this on Sean's podcast, you know, saying that drugs cause addiction is as stupid as saying, like, I bought a new car and it keeps making me have speeding tickets.
Yeah.
It's so misunderstood. The groups like NA and AA, I know they were started on well-meaning benevolence, and I'm not dismissing that. I also know that when you're in a bloody pickle and you don't understand the psychology of what you're going through, they can be a brilliant stopgap, you know?
Yeah.
But off the back of that, what they've done, though, is they've promoted a very ill-conceived model of addiction by promoting that it's an illness that you can't get better from.
Yes, I always felt that.
It's really unhelpful. It's not just unhelpful for the individual who then thinks they're a broken machine and they're like that for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But it also has led society to have a lot of misconceptions around addiction, and yeah, there was something else I was going to say then, but probably too much drugs over the years. I can't.
Oh, I'm sure I do the same all the time. I lose my thread all the time. It's absolutely no problem.
But,
I'm sure it'll come back.
so if it can help, I should probably explain, right? So addiction is a mental health condition. Okay, it's not a disease or
no, not at all.
You could think of it as an illness. That would be okay. But what it is really, in essence, is what's known as a learned psychological disorder. So by that, what I mean is, let's just take a stupid, silly scenario. You got Marge, right? Unhappy housewife. Don't know if you still have housewives anymore, but let's just say that, right?
Go on.
She's got a load of trauma in her head. She probably doesn't even understand it or appreciate it, right? And she one day calls her husband over and kicks him in the knackers, and she's like, "Poof, have that," right?
Oh, that one.
And just in that moment, she gets a bit of a kick out of it, right? And thinks, yeah. Unbeknown to her, in that moment, she's taken her mind off all this trauma that's sitting there in the back of her brain, right? Just by doing this action on her poor husband, right? So the next day, she's like, "But spilt my cup of tea. Bring a dishcloth in." "All right, my love." In he comes, bang, smacks him in the knackers again, right? And she's like, "Yeah, I like that." And like day 3, but in here, right? And this goes on, and before you know it, she's just smacking her husband in the balls, and she doesn't even know why. And when her life it's really starting to cause problems now. Like the kids are upset, they're in tears. She's fucking not doing the eye. Oh God!
Oh no, you didn't. Oh no, you didn't. I'll have to. We can't wipe that one out either.
She's not fixing the car. I said she was a housewife. Housewife's iron, all right. That's that. I'm not being sick. Right?
Never mind.
All right. She's not going to work.
Yeah.
She's not maintaining those things in life that you need to do to keep balance, right? Instead, all she wants to do is smash her husband in the crown jewels, right? And before long, her whole life's fallen apart. What does she do to try and fix it? Smashes her husband again, because she's learned that this is the thing that fixes everything, right? So the point I'm trying to make here, Jimmy, as stupid as it sounds, is where did drugs come in that example?
Yeah.
Nothing. Because drugs, as I said, drugs can't cause addiction. And in this scenario, this woman's got addicted to an action. It's the
same with violence, isn't it?
Yeah, in this case, it's a stupid violent action, right? It might be that she got addicted to sex. It might be that she got addicted to food. It might be that, she got addicted to drinking water, whatever
gambling,
it is.
Pingo, whatever. There's so many different. There's more. Yeah. There have never been more outlets for these, as you say, learned behaviors, misdirected kind of. And as you say, it leads on then to addiction. There's just so many different avenues. There are recovery and support groups for so many things that you would never think. Really think, you're addicted to what? Oh, okay, like it's bonkers.
But the reason I use that, I'm using that example, is you can see that drugs didn't even come in the equation, right? And the notion that kicking someone in the bollocks can turn you into an addict, people would laugh at it. Yeah. But this is to give you an idea of how a learned psychological disorder begins. You've got Marge there. She does an action.
Yeah.
Action makes her feel temporarily better about it. So she does it again. She does it again. She does it again. Then her life, because she becomes obsessed with pursuing that action, her life starts to fall apart. Well, in order to fix everything, she does the action again, because she's learned that is what makes everything better. But it's gone past the seesaw has turned now, and it's not making things better, it's making things worse, right? And she's in that position that I was in when I was in my sort of squalor in Plymouth there. And before I had my moment of, my epiphany. So, not only is the notion that the drug causes the addiction is wrong, but it's also, why are we saying that addiction is such a bad experience? I mean, I know I'm not talking here about when people die of an overdose, but that's a separate issue, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about someone, we've got to get away from confusing a mental health illness called addiction. We say someone overdosing because they've taken a bad pill at a festival, right? This is where it's all fuzzied by the media to create a bad image of substance use. And mankind has been doing substances since they came out of the caves, or since they lived in the caves. What essentially are they? Well, you've got a plant, it develops a toxin to protect itself. A horse or a sheep comes along, eats that plant, and it gets really, really ill, but it doesn't eat that plant again, does it? The trouble is, with mankind, we've developed this overly clever brain, and we've learned that if we just take a little bit of that toxin, whether it's the rotten apples that has created alcohol, or whether it's a marijuana bud, we just take a bit, we can alter our consciousness. And let's be honest, when you're out hunting and gathering all day long, it probably can get a bit boring. So to go back to your cave in the evening and change your consciousness a bit and get a bit weirded out, or whatever the case may be, paint a few horses on the wall, that is something that we've always done. So the sheer lunacy of trying to ban it with laws is not going to happen. Then you've got the criminal aspect, that the people making these laws are also the people that control the flow of the drugs. If people want to find out more about that, you've got to look into the sort of Arkansas situation, and also the Contra rebels in Central America, over there in Nicaragua.
Nicaragua, and that's all Sean's fantastic work, and by all means, please do check it out, because it is fantastic stuff. But we don't even have to look that far, Chris. I'll just a quick interjection, because I was going to bring it up anyway, but you've segued into it nicely. Is GW Pharmaceuticals in the UK? Are you aware of the situation with GW Pharmaceuticals?
Mate, just you saying the word pharmaceuticals, that's like a cloud of darkness has just come over my head.
And rightly so.
I mean, is it the Pfizer Corporation in America that
No, GW Pharmaceuticals. The situation is that you had Victoria Atkins, who was the drug minister, coming out and saying, we are not going to discuss cannabis legislation. It's not a thing. It's illegal. There is no medicinal value. Meanwhile, they're granting licenses, or license to cultivate, to GW Pharmaceuticals, who have the biggest exporters on the planet that's out there, in official documents, in official magazines. So I think this was the last time I was in prison, it was in the New Scientist magazine. They had UK Sugar, this big, huge sugar plantation, and next door, they're just so convenient, we're able to convert it into a cannabis plantation, 45 acres, I believe it is, and they are the biggest exporters on the planet. Yet the rest of us, not only do we get locked up for it, people get locked up for cultivation. At the very most, if the government are granting their friends licenses to grow and make billions off this drug, then everyone else, at the very most, should be being done for cultivating without a license. But they're not. They're getting done for cultivation. So you can look a bit closer to home with all this stuff. Go on.
My question about the Pfizer, I might have that name wrong, so I don't slander anyone unnecessarily, but it's the company in America that produced oxycodone, right?
Oxycontin and oxycodone, yeah.
Now, anyone who's aware will know that the opioid epidemic in America now is rife. These drugs are getting, these pharmaceutical medication that you get from your doctor are getting so strong that people are overdosing left, right, and Chelsea, right? What a lot of people don't know is it was this let's just call them a rich old family.
I've looked
that
into all
came
this.
up, that developed this medication. So a rich old corporate owning family, I think it's the Pfizer family, they came up with this very strong, highly, when I say highly addictive, it might sound contradictory to what I've just said, but
I understand what you mean.
What I'm trying to say is, if you've
Physiologically and chemically.
Yeah, if you've got underlying issues, then you're going to be, addiction is driven by underlying trauma, unresolved trauma, right?
Yeah.
So if your doctor's giving you the drug, telling you they're perfectly legal and they're fine, you've got a lot of people that are getting addicted to them because they have underlying unresolved issues, right?
Yeah.
And then not only are they addicted and they don't understand what's happening to them, but then they can't go and talk to anyone, because they go and talk to their doctor, the doctor will stop the prescription.
Yeah.
And they become dependent on this stuff, right? So what the point I would just interject is, so it's like the drug is a catalyst for the addiction, right? It doesn't cause the addiction. Sorry, I didn't want to sound like I was contradicting myself.
No, I understand what you mean.
And so you've got this family. What they did, they really invested heavily in this advertising and education campaign for medical practitioners, telling them that, hey, this oxycodone, it's no stronger than giving someone an ibuprofen or a paracetamol, right?
Already
and of
then,
course you've got your doctors there you've got your doctors there that don't really understand all this, because let's be honest, you do 5 years at medical school. It's not enough to understand the universe, right? It's not enough to understand even like a tiny bit. It's just enough to understand the basics of sitting in a chair and dealing with sick people all day and go into a book. And now they Google it, don't they? If they don't know something. Not having to go at GPs here, but
no, it is what it is. We call it how we see it.
They get someone come to them with a bad back, and they go, "Oh, hang on, look in my right, OxyContin. This no more harmful than giving you ibuprofen," and it's causing havoc. And it's okay for me to say, I appreciated my experience of addiction, but it's another thing to overdose and die, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
and for those who haven't come out of the other side, and I, include myself within that, I've had slips of late and things like that. I said up and down roller coaster. You seem to be fully out of it, and that's what we're all striving for, Chris. And it's like, as you say, for those who are still stuck right deep within it, and you say it's your doctor facilitating that, and as you say, you can't go to the doctor and say, look, I can't stop taking these, because you say they'll stop, and then that's how most of them end up on the street drugs. And there are quite a few documentaries now. I watched one quite a few years back, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, about a town over in Middle Eastern America, and the whole town had just ravaged by oxycodone. It was just crazy to see. Crazy to see, yeah. And all done by government and families, these syndicate families.
Yeah, and it's such a complex subject to talk about, because the trouble is everybody's different, and everyone has different psychological makeup, social makeup, biological makeup. Everyone has a different history. Everyone has a different drug, right?
Yeah.
And so it's I mean, it's real food for thought. I mean, my experience of addiction really, like I say, I wouldn't swap it, right? But then who's to say that being addicted to oxycodone isn't as productive? Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I like to frame addiction in one way, as Mother Nature seeing an individual going in the wrong direction in life, or being upset, or having a downer, or whatever it might be, and going, wait, have some of that, because when you work, chucking addiction upon them or introducing addiction into their life as a kind of like a learning curve to change their behavior. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a tough learning curve and it's harsh, but you know, I can't say that's the case for everybody, right? I mean,
Well, you can only talk for yourself, Chris, at the end of the day.
yeah,
And, you know, and it's the same for me. I can only talk for my own experiences, but I'll talk for my own experiences unashamedly and as they were, because I wouldn't be who I am today. I say, even with recent, you know, slips and falls that have caused problems for myself, at the end of the day, as long as you can get back up again and keep going and keep trying, Chumbawamba style, you know, I get knocked down, I get back up again. That's what it's about. And but there's addiction and there's addiction. Like, there's the difference between, you know, someone who is, you know, addicted to buying a gram of weed a day, or you know, having a bottle of wine every night, which is an addiction, whether you want to call it you know, an addiction or not, to someone who is out there robbing and having to raise 500 quid a day for a crack habit. You know, there's levels and a spectrum to the whole thing. And I think, you know, I've discussed this with Joe Joe Lomax on a different podcast about you know, guys coming out of 40-year addictions to heroin and things like that. These are those pathways within the brain. They are so solidly kind of cemented in. It's
yeah.
but as you say,
Well,
you know, go on.
they say one of the arguments about change, that human beings can instigate change in their own minds, is that you develop this neuroplasticity.
Yes.
And that's saying that your pathways have become, that they harden your neural pathways. So the messages that your brain is receiving, it becomes hardened and harder to change as you get older, right?
Yeah.
But of course, this is all theory. It's not saying it is, and it's not saying it isn't, right? It's a theory, like pretty much a lot of things in science. Or it's what science is founded. It's founded upon theory, right? So I mean, it's like gravity, isn't it? It's still just a theory.
It's just a theory.
You know?
Just a theory.
And what I would say there is that don't give up hope. If you know, you just said that I seem to be on top of it. Wow, you know, you'd be surprised.
Well, every day is every day, isn't it? Each day starts afresh.
Yeah. What I'd like to think, what I pride myself more on now. I don't pride. That sounds stupid. I don't go around priding myself. But what is a good thing is that when I get myself in that shit now, I can get myself out.
Yes.
You know?
You've got the tools. You've got to create those tools, Chris. You know.
Yeah. And this is the thing, is that I can start going down that route again, Jimmy, and I have done many times. It's called lapsing or relapsing. Yeah. And that is absolutely fine, because when you understand the cycle of change, you'll understand that lapsing and relapsing is part of your learning. Yeah. And where does it bring you? It brings you back around to the starting point, where you realize something is wrong and you need to take action again. Yeah. And it's fine. That the problem that's promoted by, I guess, a lot of these sort of help groups is that they talk about getting clean, right? Not only is that a disgusting word, I've never done anything, you know, I've done stupid things in my life. I've never done anything unclean by taking drugs, right? So the whole language we use is offensive and oppressive and stigmatizing, unhelpful. I would agree with that. Yeah. But secondly, you're not trying to get people clean or off drugs. You're trying to help them get balance in their life. Okay, you know, if someone can do 1 gram of heroin a month, and I've met people like this, and yet they're fully functioning as I don't know, your stereotypical doctor or solicitor, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that something to aim for? What's all this clean business? Well, that's brought about by people that have been put under the belief that they can't help themselves. Yeah. And I would argue you always can. Sometimes it will seem like, oh my God, I've gone down the bloody that avenue again, that unhelpful avenue again. But don't forget, every time you do learn, and it can be frustrating, but eventually you can get yourself in a situation where, for as much as that short-term endorphins kid you into taking the drug or whatever, you can build this mental infrastructure to get you out again. And simply one aspect of that is, if I find myself going down that road, I can just go, stop.
Yeah.
Think about what's important to you.
Yeah.
Think about the promise you made. In my case, to my son, I'm a dad now. He comes first. It's that freaking simple.
Yeah.
Think about that. If you're doing that again, it's kind of cowardly behavior, because it's going to affect that little man for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that because you've experienced that. So, I'm not trying to put guilt on anyone here, Jimmy. I'm saying
I understand.
this is how I talk to myself, right?
Yeah.
I think about the health aspect. I've got a lot of best mates. I'm sure you're the same. If you're a friend of mine, you probably very quickly become my best mate, right?
Yeah.
But Simon generally was a very old and best mate of mine. He drunk himself to death after coming off the speed. It's a factor you can't get away from. If you're putting toxins in your body, you're shortening your lifespan. It's just that simple. You ain't going to drink every day and live to 90 years old, and I already, Jimmy, drank, I drank and smoked drugs every day for like best part of 30 years, certainly 25 years. So my body's already been through enough, right?
Yeah.
And I know that if I go back down that alleyway, that this is what I'm doing. And this might sound like a lot of negatives, but it's not. This is the cognitive behavioral therapy that I've done on myself.
Yeah.
Because I could stay in denial. I could go, Chris, it's just a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've 30 years of drinking and drugs. Look what you've learned. But I could do all that bullshit, right? But I'm not. I could say, well, it's my house. I'm a man. I work hard. I'm going to have a beer in front of my son. If he doesn't, But I know better than that, Jimmy. And you see, I'm not in denial, and that's kind of like one of the very sad things about addiction, when you see someone in denial.
Yeah.
And all you can do is use a little bit of kind of challenging technique or motivational. We call it, as a drug worker, it's called motivational interviewing, right? So you say to me, I haven't got a problem. I'll say, what are you doing in a drug agency then? Sorry, I'm confused. Oh, no, that's my family. I come here for my family. Oh, so your family think you got a problem? Oh, well, yeah. Well, so what do they think is that? Oh, it's my drink. It's my drink. Right. Okay. So why would they? Why? If you say it's not a problem, why would they think it's a problem? Oh, I smashed a car up and I got done for drink drive. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, Jimmy. That sounds like a problem. You're going to lose your job. You've got a criminal record, and you smash your car up. So, could you sort of say that maybe it's a little bit? Well, now you mention it, I suppose, and you use a bit of that kind of technique, and you can maybe get people over that denial sort of phase. But I guess it's the old, it's the old cliche, isn't it? You're only going to change if you want to change, and
that is it. And based on quickly on what you were just saying there, the whole, when you catch yourself falling into that hole again, it's how quickly can you pull yourself back out of it. If you're coming from a 10-year addiction, and then you might have 6 months clean and then another couple of years. Whereas if you can, I recently had a full week of just full-blown madness, and it was just in a bad place, but I was able to come out on the other side, and I've come out with a much more positive. And it's that full circle. As long as you can do that and not allow yourself to fall into it and stay in it, as you say clearly, the drugs are not the issue. It's the reason that you've taken the drug. That's what the issue is. So,
well,
What is the issue
Jimmy,
then? And if you don't know what it is, you need to do a little bit of digging and find out. And that's kind of
what I've found is because I'm willing, because I believe in myself and I want a good life.
yeah,
I don't want to be in that denial. So I will
yeah,
highlight the bad shit about what the behavior I'm doing.
yeah,
You know, if I stop by the off license on the way and I'm picking up 4 cans, I might still pick them up. Okay, you know, I might pick up some tobacco while I'm there, and I don't smoke and I don't freaking drink, right? But I'm going down that avenue again. But I'm doing it already knowing this has got to change.
mm,
This has got to change. And what happens is when you focus on it, you constantly flag up these negatives. You flag up what you're doing wrong. Is you start to find you can't enjoy being in that place
yeah.
anymore,
That's very
because
true.
you always know where it's going to lead.
Mm,
You know that it's no good's going to come of it, and you know it's going to change. So just a silly example. I know that if I'm on, you know, drugs or alcohol, my writing suffers.
right.
I also know that I always tell myself my writing's going to, it's not so much my writing's going
I
to be
was going to
better,
say, yeah,
it's going to come easier and I'm going to write loads more and da 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 da. And when I'm sat at the computer trying to write and I've got a can of beer there, you know, and it, it, it's, it's, it's always the same, Jimmy. My writing just goes to shit. I can't concentrate. I never get anything done. I stopped going to the gym at, you know, getting up at 5 in the morning or 5:30 and being at the gym for 6, or swimming a mile before, you know, I don't have breakfast. I have a green smoothie in the morning. And, yeah, that's where my life is now, mate. Green smoothies, right?
yeah. You're living the dream, baby.
But,
Living the dream.
you know, I've swum a mile before I come back and have that. I've had a nice sauna. I'm all showered up, ready to go for the day.
That's it.
All that goes out the window when
Yeah,
I start going down those old behaviours, and
yeah,
it's just that in itself is flags up warning signs for me, and I'm like, it's got to change already, isn't it? That
yeah,
behaviour, I've got to
mm,
change it already. It's not,
yeah.
it's not going to lead to anything good. And I really hope this is making sense, because
100%, 100%. And as I say, I'm going through it myself, and I've been, compared to years gone by, I've been doing quite well, But as you say, no one's perfect. But the times between the slips are becoming larger and larger, and that's the only thing you can work upon, and that's the thinking. The twisted thinking. So when and it's like you said, they convince yourself, oh, my writing will be better. I'll have a few tinnies on the side, and then that's bullshit. And when you're bullshitting yourself, that's because we're the easiest person to fool and bullshit is ourselves. Once you start learning to stop bullshitting yourself, because no one else is falling for your bullshit. That's why I see when I say,
yeah,
I'm not falling for your bullshit. I'll pretend I'm falling for your bullshit, but I'm not falling for your bullshit. And it's like,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going to quickly, I made a little note there about neuroplasticity and the positive side of it being 21 days of persistent action is the key to locking in a positive habit, also a negative habit, but also a positive habit. And that's something that I've kind of learned and put into practice a couple of times with a few things. So, it's like getting back into the gym. I'm struggling when you're locked up in jail. Prison is all you have. When you're locked up in prison, the gym is all you have. And people then get addicted to the gym. And
Jim is a
it
good bloke,
is.
mate. I'll say that for him.
Hey, but there are worse addictions in life to have as well. But also, it can become unhealthy as well. Anything can become unhealthy. But I'm just in the process now of wanting to get back to that place of you just can't wait to get up in the morning and get to the gym, because afterwards, as you say, you're starting that day on a different kind of level. It's
It's a big,
it's all making complete sense to me.
yeah, they call it morning routine, don't they?
Yes.
In life coaching circles, there's a big sort of emphasis is being put on that at the moment, and
Yes.
it's really it's very important. And my day now doesn't feel right if I don't do the routine,
Yeah. Having a daily
Um,
practice. I'm friends with a lovely lady called Shakti Cabral. She does, I always forget. It's quite an intricate kind of advanced form. She works at Qigong and energy healing and all this kind of stuff. But it's getting that daily practice in now. I gave Sean some information on, I know he was big into his yoga, but the 5 Tibetan rites. Are you familiar with that? It's
No.
essentially, it's a very simple, it's just 5 little exercises you do. You do 20, you can build up to them. If you're fit enough and healthy, you can crack straight on with the 21 of each. But there's 5 different movements, and it's the original, it's just a very simple form of yoga that the old yogis do, and it's what was brought back out from Tibet in the originally. That's what I understand of it, I think. And no, it's been developed now and corporatized and turned into classes and these all different kind of extended programs and whatnot. But all you have to do is just them 5 Tibetan rites, and it's just, people just need to Google it or YouTube it, and it's so easy. And when I was doing that every day, I had that right, and that was my beginning of my day. Before anything else, you just get up. I'm getting back into it now. I've been up the flat and I've been doing it kind of every morning. And once you can get that locked in, it's just great because you literally hit every single muscle. You flex in every single position, and even just that one single purposeful practice of a daytime, you can add more different things to it, but even just having one can be so beneficial. And as you say, whether it's that swimming of a mile and coming back and having your green shake, it's all positive stuff, and having
Yeah,
those things in place are very, very helpful and productive, I find.
I'd say the place I got myself to now, Jimmy, is like I can't really enjoy being on drugs or being drunk because it like life off it is too good for me now, if that makes sense.
And that's nice. It's a nice place to be.
I have to say it it's also about setting, right? That's a drug workers term. I never used to use it, but I now hear people using it when they talk to me. And one thing I think that really helped is all the drugs went so shit in this country. I think the government learned how to ban the chemicals needed to make, for example, good speed, because it's all synthetic shit now, right? The pills very often are synthetic, and it's just not a nice feeling, right? It's like people that smoke this synthetic cannabis. I had a few tokes on someone's joint where, oh my God, it sent me into such one of the worst anxiety or panic attacks I think I'd ever experienced. It was horrible, right? I'm not saying that normal weed makes me much better, but that was kind of another. I'm just trying to give the full picture here, because if it'd be different if I was sat in Amsterdam now with some good quality, good quality pills, or if it's South America, like the coke down there is just, people in this country wouldn't know what it was, mate. They would not. They would not know. With what you get in the clubs there, that I don't know what that is, but it's probably more dental than it is jungle, if that makes sense.
100%.
I'm not saying that if I was in one of those situations, I might not. I mean, to give an example, a friend of mine buys all his stuff off the dark web. I went out. He lives in Croatia, and I went out to meet him, and he had, my God, he had some crystal meth, some pills, and when you buy it, it's like eBay, so people rate it. So if you screw people over, sell them crap, you get a bad rating on that on these websites, right? And so what you're buying is good. You can buy like what's it called? Not clinical grade cocaine. Right. So what the medical people use, right? You can buy it all on there, right? So I went over there, and this is quite a few, about 5 or 6 years ago now, and we just had a night on it, and it really reminded me of it was too good. It's a bit dangerous. It's a bit dangerous. The pills reminded me of the dance era back in the day. The crystal meth was the proper good stuff, like in Hong Kong, And I'm kind of glad that it's all a bit shit in this country now, because I don't know any dealers anymore, mate. You know, I wouldn't know who to call if I decided to that. Yeah, I wouldn't know who to call. So
it's a double-edged sword now with what you're describing there, Chris, because on one hand you're saying you wouldn't know who to call, but then on the flip side of that is there's no excuse these days to be buying shit drugs off anybody. And I'm not recommending people buy drugs. My point is
no,
that
me neither.
it's no, I've really fucked things up with drugs, so I don't recommend them. If you can do things without drugs, that would be my advised route. But my point is that anyone now, as you know, Shane mentioned the dark web. Anyone can access the dark web. So, and as you say, it's like Amazon. And on one side, it's good because it's reduced violence a lot. It's reduced a lot of street activity on one level, because a lot of people now will just buy their own from the dark web, or groups of friends will come by, pool their cash and do their thing. So obviously there are different threads to this train of thought. Like, the one is, on one hand, I think it is a positive thing. I think it has had positive effects, because the only people now who are getting in trouble with drugs are irresponsible people, because you can buy drug testing kits. All the websites are out there, your pill reports, your bunk police, your blue light. There's no excuse in this day and age to be buying random drugs off strangers and things like this, because if you're going to get in trouble doing shit like that, that's what's going to cause problems.
Well, Jimmy, you've just highlighted a key area there, which is education.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? And off the back of this government's attempt at prohibition, and what do we know about prohibition? Well, we know it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
They've obscured all of this, and so you got. I mean, just this weekend, wasn't it? 2 young people at a festival bought a pill. That pill, for some reason, don't ask me why, but there was something in it that killed these 2 lads. I'm saying lads. I didn't.
Yeah.
I glanced a headline in an article. I don't read all that tabloid stuff anymore, but I glanced a headline. Might have been boy and a girl or whatever. But point is, we're denying, with all this kind of, drugs is illegal, we're denying them the chance to learn that there's things like testing kits, right?
Yeah.
We're denying them just everything that we're talking about now, right? The government wants to censor, and it doesn't want people having these conversations.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just all.
It's disgraceful, really, isn't it? It's disgraceful. That's what it is. Let's just call it how we see it. It's disgraceful, and we know why. We know they've all got shares in the alcohol companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the prisons, the private prison system. All that. You don't have to look into it. None of this shit's hidden. You can look at all the information. It's all there plain to see. And you look at countries now. There's how I met a fella last Saturday. We were having a conversation about similar things, and he was saying, I think it's in Holland, there is a new show. I think he said it was called Drugs Lab. I've not had a chance to check it out, but I'll check it out, and I'll put a note in the comments about it, in the description box rather. But apparently there's a show once a week. It comes out, and they just test all the latest shit that's out on the streets, and that's what most of the main suppliers do. The main, your Party Flock crew from the Netherlands and all this kind of stuff. Because that's all that's happened over there is, as you say, they banned all the chemicals. So, for example, they embargoed saffron or sassafras oil from the Southeast Pacific, and rightly so. They were decimating beautiful, large, massive trees just to get at the roots, get the oil. Well, that kind of MDMA was something special. Granted, the way in which it was made was not productive, and I do disagree with it. I didn't at the time, but
I don't, Jimmy. I don't. Can you explain this to me? Because that comes from the saffron tree in Southeast Asia, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Mainly Cambodia, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And it was quite obvious when that chemical became in short demand, because the pills become shit, right?
Yes.
They become this synthetic.
Well, it was PZP was the main and that's obviously an abbreviation for the longer letter of it. And I think most of that was made in New Zealand, I think, from what I've gathered.
Okay.
And that was, and it was
What I
horrible
don't
stuff. Go on.
understand is when someone rocks up at a party and they've got a bag of Mandy.
Yeah.
Is that? I mean,
what's happened? Go on.
I've always taken it that the pills are shit because there's none of that saffron oil left in the world, right?
Yeah.
But the MDMA is the real McCoy. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that.
No, you are wrong. Yeah. What it is that the pills are just as good as the MDMA now. They're, if anything, what happened, and they discovered a different way to synthesize the same essential product but using a different base oil called PMK oil. What that is, I'm not entirely sure, but it comes from. There's a great show on Netflix, a really gritty. I think it's a Belgian drama. Well, these two undercover detectives who go and infiltrate this ecstasy gang. It's a fantastic program. I wouldn't watch it with subtitles. I wouldn't watch it dubbed. Watch it with subtitles because the dubbing is rubbish. But that's an aside. They discovered a way to synthesize MDMA with PMK oil, and what you found then was that not only was the MDMA back to the good old strength, the pills, because it was so easy for them to manufacture, they were just having pissing contests. These Dutch crews, and they're putting pills out that were like 350 milligrams and 375 milligrams. That's too much for even someone with a strong regular usage. And you take a young 15-year-old girl or a young 16-year-old lad or whatever, first time taking one of these pills, and it's no wonder they're getting hospitalized. But the point, I don't like MDMA anymore because it's just not the same. When it's made with sassafras oil, you get the.
I can't remember the last time I took street drugs. Yeah, I mean, I'm so much happier off all that shit. I just genuinely, I never say never, because I don't want, if people see me, with a beer in my eye, I don't want them thinking I'm a hypocrite or I've fallen down. It's like, no, I'm cool with it all, right? Just, I prefer like the pure life now. It's just fucking so much better. And to any young people listening, my deal with everyone is you live your life and I'll live mine, and then that's fine, right? But if you can be happy without all that shit, fucking go for it, right? But it's kind of hard. It's hard for me to make comment because I was so misguided as a young person. I thought my parents' generation, they were just really naive about life and about what was in. They didn't know any. They were so the British equivalent of the American dream, right? If you're a doctor, you're a good person. But if you're what we now call a refuse collector, they were called dustbin men when I was a kid. And that's like a not such a good person. That is genuinely how I was brought up.
Yeah.
If you drive a big flashy car that ironically destroys the planet because it uses so much fuel, that is a better way to be than someone who drives a Mini that saves the planet. All these weird constructs about what makes you happy and successful, and of course it's all just it's all just constructed to try to, well, as we know, it's constructed to suit other people's agendas. But I guess it also just helped my parents' generation make sense of the world, right?
Yeah.
But so for people listening, I grew up with a weird sense of of how life was, because my parents were post-war, so they had a certain, it's like if you drove down the street in the 70s and a woman's walking down the road in high heels, okay, it's perfectly normal for the woman in your car to go, "Oh, look at her, mutton dressed up as lamb," right? Say, are you really that judgmental and nasty? And why do you care about how someone else lives their life? Why are you interested, right? But back then, that was like normal, I mean, back then, if your parents were married, you were called a bastard, right? So I would go out to play with a certain kid, and my mum would go, "Oh, you going out to play with Brian the Bastard?" That was, that was the label that they put on children. You had to grow up with that label. I'm a bastard.
Yeah.
This is how sort of screwed up it was. And this is why for a lot of us, when the ecstasy generation came around and the dance era, and you suddenly find yourself sat on the floor of a sleazy nightclub, not sleazy is the wrong word, but a dirty, filthy nightclub, and you're rolling a joint with that refuse collector that your parents kind of said you don't want to be like that. He actually really is a really nice person, and you got this instant mutual respect for each other. It was a real eye opener for, it wasn't just that it was an eye opener. It was just so reassuring to realize that kind of like what you thought your values really were actually were like they are.
Yeah.
Because I've never really judged anyone, but yeah, again, like I hope this kind of makes sense. But for the young people listening, it's difficult for me to speak, Jimmy, on the subject. I never. One thing I've always tried to do in my life is I've never introduced someone to drugs ever. Bar one person. There was a Norwegian friend of mine that came to stay in the UK, and we went out for a dance party one night.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, and that's not to say in any way I'd blame anyone that introduced me.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way it is. It's just your destiny is your kind of destiny, right?
Yeah.
So as far as young people go that might listen to this, I don't think I know what to tell you other than just live your life. I'm not going to recommend you do anything other than certainly try and learn about the spiritual side of the universe, and learn about what makes good diet, learn about the alkaline living, which has had a massive effect, bigger effect on my life than anything else I've ever done.
Yeah, awesome.
Learn about kind of the eternal energy that runs through the universe, which we're all a part of, which then that cuts out a lot of shit that you have to learn and hear about. If you just realize we're all just atoms at the end of the day, vibrating at a certain frequency that holds us in this form, and nothing else really matters so much,
Yeah.
So it's a real difficult one, and it's kind of why it's, when you hear people, "Oh, don't do any of that shit anymore," it's, well, hang on, it wasn't shit when you did it, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
You did it for a reason. You loved it when you did it. Open your eyes to what you mean is you don't want the addiction anymore because of the turmoil it caused in your life, right? So
yeah.
No,
I resonate with that, Chris. It does make complete sense, but what you were saying makes complete sense from your side of the table, and 100% get where you're coming from. For me, it's just a little bit different. Obviously, being still, like this summer, I went to a few free parties. You know what, free party scene where they just go, yeah, great. And the vibes and the people there, they're just phenomenal, and they'll clean up after. They don't leave a scrap of dirt. That's an aside, but what I've kind of observed now is that, like, as I said, the MDMA is not the same as it used to be because they make it with this different chemical. And what seems to be now the new wave is now ketamine and these balloons. So that's what seems to be the new wave. And ketamine is a whole other beast now. Really messes people up big style.
This is the line. There's a line though between stimulants and hallucinogens, and I know ketamine is actually a tranquilizer, but you can hallucinate really when you go down to KO.
Yeah.
There's a few things in life that are bizarre. I do not suggest. I mean, another of my best friends drowned after we took LSD together.
Yeah.
Right?
You'll be coming
So
back about talk about on Sean's, I believe, yeah, part 2.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm here to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not a drug advocate. I'm not an anything. I'm
No.
not an anything advocate. I'm like, you live your life, Jimmy, and I'll live mine.
Yeah.
Then we'll be, you'll find a way. And it's hard because this planet is massively overpopulated, and sadly, people are going to die, right? It's do you know what I'm saying? It's where do you try to protect everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, people have to die. It's a sad fact of life, and this is also another factor in this equation. If you want to kind of look at things from a holistic point of view, not everyone is going to survive. Not everyone's going to come through addiction, because life, to a certain extent, is about adapting and finding the way. And sadly, some people, they won't find that way, and it's not their fault. Often it's they're a byproduct of their upbringing. They haven't had. I mean, I was probably quite lucky that despite a lot of craziness, I think I'm naturally quite an intelligent person. I'm a bit stupid at too many things, but I do have kind of like a perception about me that maybe has helped me to stay on this planet, right? I guess also other people can have trauma that is so bad that it's really a lot harder for them to get over these these maladapted coping mechanisms. For example, drugs. Yeah. So,
Can I ask something, Chris?
ask away, mate.
You've been all over the world, as you say. Refresh me. Well, you've been on every continent, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Do you actually believe the planet is overpopulated, or do you think it's more a case of actually how things are structured, rather? Because you can fit, apparently, and I don't quote me on this because I'm not sure, but apparently you can fit every single human being in Alaska with like a football field each or something ridiculous like that. So I'm not calling you out. I'm just asking for you to elaborate on it.
No,
like you said, you're not a stupid guy.
I want you to call me out because I don't want to live with a head full of shit.
Yeah,
I want truth, Jimmy. What
Same.
It's like I only tell the truth, right? And that's not because I'm an angel or I'm again, I'm not no, it's like learn Eastern philosophy. If you want to live the perfect life, you can't lie, because that is living in the lower part of your body. It's living in what they call the beast sense, the beast senses, like the animal area. Above that is your enlightened area. I don't want to live, your beast area is your kind of like people who lie and cheat, people that are massively
lust and greed and envy,
lust, greed, pornography, gluttony. It's kind of like the 7 deadly sins, right? But it's not. So it's not like that. Oh God, I'm such an angel. It's like, no. It's like I like to live the good life.
Yeah.
And living in this part of the body.
What you put out, you get back, isn't it? So And
I like to live like this, Jimmy, because it's just so much easier than the clusterfuck of a life I've lived before.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier to be truthful. Some people might not like what you say, and that's fine, but at least I'm giving them the opportunity to make their own minds up. I'm not hiding, or I'm not putting an agenda in their way. So going back to what you said about the population, I don't have any issue, right, with I've heard both sides of the debates for global warming, for example. Okay? My question's more like, I'm not really too bothered about that. What I'm more bothered about is the pollution.
Yeah.
Like, how long do we continue to think we can destroy the planet, taking any resources from it, whether it's iron, tin, coal, or whatever, plastic lifestyle? Are we that stupid? We think that can go on forever, because it can't.
Yeah.
We're building mountains of rubbish. we're destroying the environment. We're cutting down areas of natural beauty, and as we now, and as we know, the rainforest gives us our oxygen and all this sort of stuff. My question is that. So it's not about like how many people per se live on the planet. It's about how are we fueling that?
Yeah.
How
Exactly.
how are we going to allow everybody in China to have 2 cars and 3 children?
Yeah.
How are we going to allow everybody in Botswana to go to McDonald's 3 times a week and throw away all that plastic crap?
Yeah.
How are we going to support 10 billion more supermarkets on the planet in the next X amount of years? These are more important.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, you end up thinking about such random thing or such sort of extreme concepts of, do we all have to go back to the hunter-gatherer thing where we didn't actually damage anything in the planet because it all regrew again? You might chop down a tree, but it's going to regrow. You might pick some berries and some nuts, but they're going to grow back. You didn't use iron tools, so you didn't have to do quarrying and destroy that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
How are we going to find a happy balance between where we are now and where we were then that is sustainable?
Yeah.
It's like people talk about wind tunnels, wind farms, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but where's that windmill made? It's made in a factory. It's made out of metal that comes from the ground. It's made out of plastic that pollutes in. What when it's defunct, they'll rip it down and it goes in landfill.
Yeah.
Did you get what I'm saying? So it's not really renewable energy, is it? It's energy at a cost. And sure, it might be 80% better than what we had before. I wouldn't dispute that. But human beings have the ability to think very, very cleverly. And sadly, because these greedy, rich, elitist men control everything for their own lack of ego or their own overinflated ego, they have found very clever ways to stop us all thinking about these things. And in the distractions in the form of, you say, Netflix, social media, things that we're all guilty of to a certain extent, but it's because it's shoved in front of us, right? Meghan Markle, like if that's 2 words that ever come into your life, that ever come out your mouth, you're seriously never going to be happy.
Yeah.
You might be like content, to cruise through, and you might think that your lot is good. But if you're seeking like the higher reward in life, you've got to raise yourself above all that pop culture stuff, because it's there to confuse the truth. It's there to brainwash you and manipulate you. And so.
No, I completely relate to what you're saying there, Chris, because as you say, it's the system, that's why I wanted to clarify, I thought you've said exactly what I expected you to say, basically, because it's nothing to do with the amount of people, but it's how those people are living those lives, and I'm sure you'll be familiar with the African principle of Ubuntu. Like, if it's not good for everyone, and it's not good for anyone, and that's the
exactly.
That's the principle we try and live by, and and if we're doing anything, it's like as it is at the moment, it's only going one way, and it's going very, very fast. I think we're probably on the brink of a societal reset, and whether that'll be Mother Nature doing that to us, or whether it'll be well, who knows? But I think it's going to go one way or the other quite soon.
It's hard to know, where to position yourself, because right, it's at the end of the day, like, I don't really value my life, so I'm not really bothered if I do die, because I just think I'm just a load of molecules. It just does it really, the reason I've got this survival instinct is because I am, by definition, Mother Nature. You can call that God, you can call that universe, you can call that spirit, whatever, but I am, by definition, Mother Nature's way of experiencing herself, right?
Yeah.
So there's no more, it's not, I don't believe in getting any more clever about it than that. It's God created life because it's fucking boring on his own, you know. He was there in an infinite bloody galaxy universe. It was just blackness, and he sat there on his tablet, you know, fucking bored as fuck. Thought, do you know what? I'm going to create something. When I create that, I want that thing there to chuck something back at me, and then I'm going to chuck it back, and that's going to create something. And then it's, and then, you know, I want this life form that I'm creating to develop consciousness, and it's just a mad experiment, isn't it? Really, whichever way you look at it.
It is.
So I'm not massively. I don't know where I sit in it all, if I'm honest. I don't know if I should be a human rights warrior that's against fracking and or whether, like, it all doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if it got that bad, you can top yourself, and then, well, that's, you know, you just go back to the dirt then, don't you? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's, you know.
I genuinely, what I'm trying to say is that's like an extreme Buddhist philosophy, isn't it?
Yeah.
The extreme right of, like, hey man, just chill out. It does, what will be, let it all go. And then you've got maybe the extreme left, which is, no, we've got to fight for freedom and what's right, and da 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 da. And it's kind of hard, because if you spend all your life fighting, you're gonna burn out, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And these people, they tire you out. I mean, they are a sick bunch of bastards, aren't they? I mean, they just are these wars that they create, and it's pretty mad. And people are just buying into this Iran stuff, with no memory that we've just been through all this with
Literally. How long ago? It wasn't that long ago, was it? And you're like,
I mean, are you that short-sighted you can't see? And it's like,
makes you wonder, doesn't it?
First of all, I'd just say to people, yeah, even if you are seeing a video and it alleges to show Iranian soldiers placing landmines on West, you know, ships from the West, or, well, by that I mean America or Britain, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, have the self-respect to at least realize you don't know where the hell this video came from. Just have, you don't know who the actors are that are in this, and use that word actors for a reason. You don't know what this mysterious ship is. But secondly, even if it is Iranian soldiers, and even if that is a ship from Esso Oil or something, think who control these people. Yeah. Because you'll find they all went to the same school as your Tony Blair and your blooming David Cameron and your, you know, all your extremely high-level Freemasons. And by that, I'm not talking about the guys that go for a beer at the lodge on a Friday night. I mean, these things go much, much higher, right?
Yes.
You know, they all went to the same schools. They all belong to the same clubs. They all speak an esoteric language that the man in the street wouldn't understand, right? So yeah, it might, if that is soldiers doing that, or if then you've got to understand that the people that are telling them to do it are the same people that went to school with David Cameron and Tony Blair, and do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The same ties. They make the same secret deals because war really suits their purpose. They sell the same, you know, they make money off these bombs, bullets, and guns, and they do it all. And if you want to go to war, then you need to look a veteran in the eye when he's lost his legs and say, "I'm glad about that." You know, and you know, if you really want to thank a veteran for his service, don't send him to war, because it's unnecessary. You know, the vast majority of wars are created just, you know, we're probably getting a bit deep now, but I think,
no, this is what I was going to come on to, actually. I hope it's okay with you to come on to this stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm an ex.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
This was going to be my next. I've literally got it written here about the military stuff, because
yeah, go for it. Might
yeah. Well, I didn't think you'd mind, because you obviously.
Hey, Jimmy, can I just say, I've got to go and pick my little man up.
I tell you what, go on.
In what time? 5 minutes. So do you want to just cover one more subject, and we can take this off?
Yeah, of course. Well, I tell you what, then I'll leave the military stuff till next time, and I'll just ask, if I may, how old is he? Number one, if that's not too intrusive to ask.
My little one is 4.
4. Oh, no, see,
Four going on 14, we say.
Brilliant. Yeah, my niece is around the same age, a little bit younger. No, actually, yeah, I think just slightly younger. And at that age, it's just, we were talking about, I'm part of a little group that meets up every second and fourth Thursday called the Rabbit Hole. And one of our members, a dear friend of mine, Tracy, was talking about, she's been a primary/junior school teacher for 20 odd years. And she said, when they come in, regardless of what kind of home life they have, they might have the most horrific home life, but they still have that spark, that light and that shine of them. And it's only when they get to come towards the end, 10, 11, that they start to harden up and all the rest of it. How do you sit with your little lad and kind of education wise? And do you see what I see when we start seeing now the fuckeries within the education system? We know it's not an education system, an indoctrination system. And how do you feel about that now, and how do you approach it with regards to balancing the bullshit? It's not all bullshit, don't get me wrong, but there is a lot of bullshit now that they're filling these little human beings' minds with, preparing them ready for the system, ready for the machine, just to be chewed up to cogs.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance a difficult thing, or do you find you're able to kind of, have there been any shocking moments where he's come home and told you anything they've been taught? He's probably a little bit young at the moment, but some of the stuff they're teaching in these schools now is just crazy.
Well, of course. I think my partner and I, our stance is just to let it ride, mate, because we can't afford to go for an alternative form. There's not many alternatives.
No, there isn't.
In other countries, you get alternative education. You've got this Steiner Waldorf education, which is much more focused about the individual, from what I understand.
I've heard of it. I've not looked into it too much.
Yeah. In Scandinavia, anyone can start a school, right? They call it folk high schools, right? So anyone can start like a specialist sort of school, So in this country, we're limited. It suits us that we've got him into a really nice school. They've got a focus on sport, which I really like. Everything about it is really, it is about the best you'd expect from a primary school, right?
Brilliant. That's good to know.
Now, yeah, of course. I mean, there's going to be stuff that I kind of wish they wouldn't teach them or whatever. It's a functionalist. It's what Karl Marx would call a functionalist education. It's basically, you've got to prepare these people to go and work in an office all their life or a call center. I mean, that's what it is in essence, isn't it? Basically sacrifice all their dreams and everything to make the ruling elite even richer than they already are. And it's very cleverly set up. They've been doing this since before the time of the pyramids. They know what they're doing, and it's just the way it is. But we would hope to have our influence on him.
Yes.
And to be able to get him to critical think, to analyze the experience that he's going through. I can't see us homeschooling him, although I wouldn't have any qualms taking a child out of school if they were getting bullied, because I think that wrecks a person for life. I would say wreck. That's very strong.
I know what you mean.
I'm sure there's people that are very impressively got themselves reconditioned from that horrible trauma. But I'm talking about the people I meet now as a 50-year-old man that I went to school with, and they still go on about that bullying that they went through when we were 11 years old. It's awful. So I wouldn't have any hassle. I'm a bit old school. I want to go charging in there and go, right, who is it?
Yeah.
But I'm also wise enough to know that person bullying is a victim as well,
Yeah.
And they're very often have a terrible time behind the scenes. So that's kind of where I stand with it. They're gonna have their bloody Christian, the service in the morning. I don't mind. It'll give my boy an understanding of what religion is, and then I can maybe help him to understand that actually there's a lot of theories about who Jesus was and what he stood for.
All in good time, isn't it? All in good time.
Yeah, all in good time. And yeah, so I'm not too. I just want him to be a happy little boy, and
Yeah.
I had a really enlightening experience the other day because we went in for they call it graduation, which I'm not sure that sits comfortably with me, but they do all that now, don't they?
Right.
So yeah, we went in for his graduation, and they had a break, and we got coffee and cake or tea and coffee rather, and the kids went outside to play, and I've never seen my little boy so excited. I'd never seen him like that because he hasn't got any brothers or sisters.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But that was
And
nice.
I think also the world we're living in now is kids don't seem to like come play with each other.
No, it's not like that now, is it? No, I know he's only 4, but even the older kids, it's all consoles and computers.
We try and reach out to the other parents at the nursery and say, look, listen, here's our phone number.
Yeah.
My kid loves your kid. If you just come, and it just doesn't seem to happen. I guess there's a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I appreciate your response there. Really do. Very honest and frank. And
well, the thing I meant to say, Jim, is I saw him run out in the playground with the kids.
Yes, yeah. Sorry.
So happy. I hadn't seen that side to him before. My little
that was nice.
He just looked like the loveliest little man in the whole world.
Oh,
he
beautiful.
He just couldn't wait to kick the football, and he's going. He's just so excited to be, and I hadn't seen that, and it was really a special moment. It made me feel a bit bad that I can't create that for him when he comes home, And
no, it's something different, isn't it? I mean, you're providing something in a different way, but I understand what you're saying.
I try to, but it makes me. I do realise I have to say to him so much. I'm working, darling. I'm working,
right?
And I hate that.
I know, yeah.
Because I'll tell you now, if anybody thinks, I think if anybody thinks, people come on podcasts to make a load of money or to do, please believe me, I want nothing to do with a public sphere. You can keep it. Okay, I love meeting guys like you, Jimmy. It really makes
likewise.
It makes life worth living, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't want to be I just don't want to in any way be in a public. I want to be with my family, doing nice things. That is it.
Same.
The reason I'm doing all this is that I don't even have like a stable income. It fluctuates month to month, and some months I can barely. I won't say I barely get by because I'm lucky I've got a little bit of savings, but so it guts me when I have to say to him, darling, I'm working, and or I'm on my phone and it's a work thing. It's I'm not blind to this, Jimmy. I know that will affect him. It's getting to the point where if I it's fine when you're a single guy. You can sit at the computer drinking, smoking, off your head if you want, writing your books and doing your social media, reaching out to your fans and that's fine. But things are just so different when you've got responsibility of another human being, So,
right. Fair play. I appreciate that. I would love to thank you very much, Chris. It's been an awesome chat. And I think if it's all right by you, we should definitely pencil another one. And next time, I've got a few. We can get right into the military stuff because, like I said, today we've gone a lot more. Not more than I'd rather. I've really enjoyed it, but we've gone a lot more into the addiction stuff, which has been fantastic and quite relevant for me myself, I must say, lately. So I really appreciate that. I want to say thank you. So
good.
Yes, have yourself a wonderful evening, sir, and we'll catch up again really soon. And I'll thank you again.
All right, brother.
All the best, brother. Take care. Nice one. Ta-ra, mate.
Cheers.
See you soon.